Chapter 1, The Visionary's Call. Welcome to Synapse Daily. Our world faced a massive crisis once. Land was becoming far too crowded everywhere. Populations were exploding rapidly in every nation. Traditional cities were failing our human souls. Concrete jungles felt like cold, gray cages. People needed a radical new living direction. Richard Buckminster Fuller answered this urgent call. He was a legendary American inventor and thinker. Fuller did not see problems, only solutions. A wealthy Japanese patron contacted him privately. The Matsutaro Shiriki family wanted a dream. They envisioned a city for Tokyo Bay. Japan had very little flat land left. Building into the sea was the only way. Fuller did not design a simple boat. He designed a massive, floating mountain instead. He named this masterpiece Triton City officially. It was a total departure from old logic. It was not a raft or a ship. It was a stable, permanent urban island. Fuller believed humanity belonged on the water. The oceans cover most of our blue planet. Why do we crowd onto tiny land strips? The visionary saw a blue revolution starting here. He saw a path to true human freedom. Triton City was his ultimate gift to us. It was a sanctuary for a crowded species. It was a bold, mathematical miracle of 1967. This project was ready for the deep blue. It promised a life without any borders. Fuller was ready to change everything forever. The call for the future had finally come. Chapter 2, The Geometry of Survival. Fuller loved the tetrahedron shape very dearly. It is the strongest structural form in nature. A triangle never loses its perfect shape. It handles extreme stress better than any square. Nature uses triangles for its ultimate strength. Look at the molecules of a hard diamond. Triton City used this exact geometric logic. It was a massive, floating, steel pyramid. The design looked like a futuristic mountain range. Each side was a complex web of triangles. This shape provided incredible stability for everyone. It could house 5,000 people very comfortably. The structure felt light yet incredibly solid. It defied every standard building rule known then. Engineers were shocked by its clever math. The weight was distributed across the entire frame. No single point carried too much heavy load. Fuller called this concept Tensegrity in his books. It means integrity through continuous tension. The city moved as one single, strong unit. Wind flowed through the open triangular gaps. Storms could not knock this giant over. Gravity felt different inside this geometric hive. Everything was connected in a perfect, logical web. People lived inside the massive outer walls. The center was a hollow, light-filled atrium. It was a masterpiece of pure spatial efficiency. It was a hive for the modern human. Fuller proved that math can save our lives. Geometry was his most powerful building tool. Triton City was a triumph of the mind. It was a peak of structural evolution. Chapter 3, Stability Amidst the Storm. People feared the ocean's unpredictable, wild power. Giant waves can destroy steel and stone. Tidal surges often crush coastal concrete walls. But Fuller had a truly brilliant plan. He used the simple principle of deep buoyancy. The city floated on massive, hollow pontoons. These pontoons sat deep below the surface. The water there is always very calm. Surface turbulence happens only at the very top. The city's base reached into the quiet depths. Triton City stayed perfectly still at all times. You would never feel a single wave move. Dinner guests could balance a thin needle easily. Not even a hurricane could tilt the pyramid. Fuller tested this using advanced scale models. The U.S. Navy verified his stability calculations. They found the design was incredibly seaworthy. It was safer than any land-based skyscraper. The deep holes acted like giant anchors. They provided a low center of heavy gravity. The ocean became a steady, solid foundation. residents would forget they were on water. They would only see the beautiful blue horizon. They would hear the soft, rhythmic splashing below. It was a peaceful fortress on the waves. Fear of drowning disappeared in this design. Fuller tamed the sea with clever physics. He turned the wild ocean into a floor. Stability was no longer a land-only luxury. The deep blue was finally a safe home. Chapter 4: A Self-Sustaining Ecosystem. Fuller hated the ugly idea of human waste. He viewed Earth as a small spaceship Earth. Every single resource must be recycled very carefully. Triton City was a perfect, closed loop. It was a living and breathing urban machine. It desalinated its own fresh drinking water. The sun provided heat for the entire structure. It processed all human waste internally and cleanly. Nothing was ever dumped into the blue sea. Nutrients were reclaimed for the internal gardens. Energy came from the sun and moving tides. The city breathed with the natural world. Efficiency was the only true law here. Fuller designed a world that needed nothing. It did not rely on distant power plants. It did not need massive, dirty supply chains. Everything stayed within the floating triangular walls. Vegetables grew in high-tech vertical farms. Fish were raised in controlled, lower hull tanks. The city fed its own hungry population. It was a model of true planetary harmony. Fuller wanted to protect the fragile environment. He believed technology should mimic natural cycles. Triton City was a green, floating paradise. It proved that humans can live cleanly. We do not have to destroy nature. We can simply float above it gently. Sustainability was not a dream for Fuller. It was a basic, core engineering requirement. The city was a self-healing, vital organism. It was a blueprint for a clean tomorrow. Chapter 5: The Death of the Car. Modern cities are built for loud engines. Fuller built Triton City for human beings. There were no noisy cars inside this pyramid. Automobiles were banned from the floating streets. Parking lots did not waste any precious space. Everything was within a very short walk. Moving sidewalks replaced dirty and toxic traffic. These electric paths moved people silently and smoothly. Children could play outside without any fear. Parents did not worry about speeding vehicles. The air stayed crisp and very salty. Life slowed down to a natural, calm pace. Silence was a luxury for every single resident. Fuller hated the inefficiency of private cars. He saw them as dangerous, metal death traps. Triton City used vertical elevators for transit. Bicycles were the primary way to travel fast. Small electric carts handled the heavy cargo. The city felt like a peaceful, giant park. People walked more and lived much longer. Health improved without the smog of gasoline. Social interaction happened on every corner. You met your neighbors on the moving paths. Community was built through these daily walks. The city breathed without the choke of exhaust. It was a sanctuary for the tired pedestrian. Fuller prioritized the human foot over tires. The car was a relic of the past. The future was a walkable, blue paradise. This was urban planning for the soul. Chapter 6: Modular Living Units. The city was built like giant Lego sets. Each apartment was a pre-made, steel pod. These units were manufactured in a factory. Then, they were craned into the frame. This made construction incredibly fast and cheap. You could add or remove units easily. The city could grow or shrink over time. It was a truly organic and flexible architecture. It responded to the local population's needs. Your home was part of a giant spine. The pods were light and very durable. They used aerospace materials for maximum strength. Every room had built-in, efficient furniture. Space was used with extreme, calculated precision. Fuller called this more with less logic. A small pod felt like a large mansion. Wide windows let in the bright sea light. Views were never blocked by other buildings. Privacy was protected by the clever triangular angles. You could move your house to another level. Flexibility was the core of the design. Families could expand their homes quite simply. Old units were recycled back at the factory. Nothing was ever truly permanent or static. Triton City was a living, changing creature. It evolved with the people living inside. Modern modular homes owe everything to Fuller. He proved that housing can be an industry. He turned architecture into a refined product. It was the ultimate machine for living. Chapter 7: The HUD Commission. The project moves beyond mere artistic sketches. The U.S. government took very huge notice. The Department of Housing and Urban Development called. They are known as HUD in the USA. They commissioned a full-scale, deep technical study. They wanted a Triton City for America. It was proposed for the Baltimore harbor. It was proposed for Jersey City too. Officials were desperate for new urban space. Land prices in cities were skyrocketing fast. Floating cities seemed like a genius escape. Experts reviewed the technical engineering very deeply. They checked the buoyancy and the steel. They found the plan was completely feasible. The math was solid and verified by many. The Navy gave their official stamp of approval. Triton City was not just a wild dream. It was a real, government-backed project. The blueprints were ready for the shipyard. Investors were looking at the potential profits. America was ready to conquer the waves. Fuller was at the peak of his influence. The world watched as the plans grew. It was the most ambitious project of 1974. A new era of American life started. We were moving off the solid ground. The floating city was almost a reality. It was a dream sanctioned by the state. Chapter 8: Why did it sink? The math worked perfectly every single time. The engineering was verified by top experts. The government had the money to build. So, why do we still live on land? The answer is simple: cold political fear. Bureaucracy killed the floating dream very slowly. Officials feared the complex legal gray zones. Who truly owns a city in the water? Which police force has the final authority? How do you collect taxes from a float? Politicians hated these difficult, unanswered questions. They preferred the safety of old land laws. The paperwork destroyed the visionaries' strong steel. Zoning boards argued for many long years. The project was delayed by endless committee meetings. The momentum died in a pile of files. Then, the global economy hit a hard wall. Funding was diverted to more practical goals. Fuller watched as his dream was shelved. The city was never officially cancelled at all. It was simply forgotten in a dusty basement. The visionary's heart was truly broken by this. Humanity chose the comfort of the shore. We stayed in our crowded, dirty cities. The blue future was locked away forever. But the blueprints remained in the archives. They wait for a generation with more courage. Triton City sank under the weight of pens. Logic lost to the fear of change. Chapter 9: The Ghost of Triton. The physical models still exist in museums today. They look like props from a sci-fi movie. They represent a future that we actively rejected. But Fuller's core ideas did not truly die. They migrated into our modern world very quietly. Look at the massive offshore oil rigs today. They use the same deep buoyancy principles now. They stand still during the most violent storms. Fuller's ghost haunts every modern floating dock. He influenced the design of massive cruise ships. These ships are moving cities on the water. They house thousands of people in total comfort. They use modular rooms built in large factories. The ghost of Triton is in our tech. We use his math but fear his vision. We build for profit but not for living. Architects still study his triangular, steel frames. They see the genius in his discarded plans. The models gather dust in dark storage rooms. Yet, they still radiate a powerful, silent energy. They remind us of what could have been. Fuller saw the ocean as a permanent home. We still view it as a dangerous barrier. But the blueprints are starting to glow again. New designers are finding his old files now. The ghost is waking up in the laboratory. Triton is no longer just a dead dream. It is a haunting map for our survival. The visionary spirit is ready for a comeback. Chapter 10: Environmental Salvation. Sea levels are rising globally at high speeds. Our coastal cities are currently drowning in water. Floods destroy billions of dollars in property annually. Fuller predicted this exact crisis many decades ago. He offered a logical way to rise above. Instead of building walls, we must use floats. A floating city adapts to the rising water. It does not fight the heavy, crashing tide. It rises and falls with nature's natural rhythm. Triton City was an environmental lifeboat. It left no permanent scar on the seabed. If the climate changes, the city simply moves. You can tow an entire neighborhood to safety. You cannot move a city made of stone. Fuller's design was the ultimate insurance policy. It protected humanity from the changing earth. It offered a path for a peaceful migration. We are running out of dry, safe land. The mountains are crowded and the valleys flood. The ocean is the last great open space. We must learn to live with the tides. Fuller showed us the way in 1974. His floating pyramid is a green sanctuary now. It solves the problem of the rising sea. It turns a threat into a new frontier. Is it finally time to reconsider the Triton? The water is coming for our old streets. We should be ready to float away. Chapter 11: The Psychology of Water. Living on the water changes the human mind. Scientists call this the blue mind effect. Blue space reduces our high stress levels daily. Fuller understood the mental power of open views. Every single unit had a clear sea view. Natural light flooded the large, inner atriums. Humans thrived near the rhythmic, pulsing tide. Triton City was a deep psychological sanctuary. It was a cure for modern urban depression. The sound of water calms the nervous system. The horizon gives a sense of infinite hope. In land cities, we feel trapped and small. In Triton, we feel connected to the planet. Fuller designed for the eye and the heart. He knew that beauty is a functional requirement. A happy citizen is a productive, kind citizen. The Blue Revolution was also a mental one. No more dark alleys or cramped, sunless rooms. Just the sun, the wind, and the water. Community spaces were open to the salt air. People felt lighter in the floating triangular hive. Crime rates were predicted to be very low. Harmony was built into the very structural steel. The ocean provides a sense of deep peace. We are made of water ourselves, after all. Fuller returned us to our most natural state. The city was a cradle on the waves. Chapter 12: A Legacy Reborn. Today, innovative companies are building floating platforms. Projects are rising in the Maldives and Netherlands. They are using Fuller's basic, core engineering principles. They use modularity and clean, sustainable power. The Unbuilt label is finally fading away now. Modern technology has finally caught his great vision. We have better materials than they had then. We have carbon fiber and advanced solar glass. The 1974 plan is now 2020's access bright reality. We are finally leaving the crowded, dry shore. Startups are designing floating hubs for digital nomads. They look exactly like the models Fuller made. The world is finally brave enough to float. Legacy is not about what you build once. It is about the ideas that never die. Fuller's seeds are finally starting to sprout now. The blue frontier is open for business again. We are building the pyramids of the sea. The geometry of survival is our new map. We are learning to live as one crew. The spaceship Earth philosophy is winning at last. The floating city is no longer a myth. It is a necessity for our long-term future. Fuller is smiling from the history books today. His dream has finally reached the deep water. The era of land is slowly coming to an end. Chapter 13, The Final Question. Was Fuller a dreamer or prophet? He saw a path for humanity. He designed a world that works. We chose to stay on land. But the ocean is still waiting. Triton City remains a blueprint. It is a map to tomorrow. Thank you for joining Synapse Daily. The future is a floating city.